25 years ago, one of the things of sort of finding fossils in the Kimmeridge clay is actually to sort of split the shells. And what I found was actually lots and lots of these things. There's little plates on this slab that indicate, and I knew what they were as soon as I found these things. They're barnacle plates. And I collected quite a number of these things, but no one was really interested. So I've catalogued the things and kept them and kept them and kept them. And when we got this project onto the sort of go, we used some of these as part of the sort of project promotion to show the material we've got. And there was a guy, a professor who worked at Portsmouth University and came with a delegation to actually look at the collection. And what he came here, he said, I don't really want to look at all this stuff. I want to look at your barnacles. And I know it sounds a bit sad. And he was a sort of expert on those sort of things and looked at these and came to the conclusion. He said, well, look, Steve, I'll tell you a little story about these things. So when I showed him this, he was sort of pretty gobsmacked. Okay, this is another complete barnacle I found. I knew it was a goose barnacle, and that was as far as it went, really. When he looked at these things, he said, well, do you realise that what you've got in your collection? And I said, well, no, I don't really, Andy. He said, well, let's put it this way. Charles Darwin's passion was barnacles, and he spent a great deal of his sort of life actually studying living barnacles and fossil barnacles. And his monograph, it came out in 2 parts, I think, is still used today. It's the most comprehensive sort of study of barnacles that anyone's ever done. And he said he looked for fossil barnacles in the Jurassic, and he found 2 new species in the Jurassic. He said, I've looked through your collection here, you've got a lot more than that, just in the Kimmeridge clay. And what he was really enthusiastic about was particularly this one, because he said, look, this type of barnacle is still living off the seas of Japan now. And he remarked that Charles Darwin actually was looking at the Jurassic for this type of barnacle, and he never found it. This was the missing link that Charles Darwin was looking for. And he got quite excited about it. So basically what he did was took all my barnacles away and worked on them, studied them, photographed them, and actually brought out a paper describing all the new barnacles. And there's another little block here, okay, with a little tiny white dot on it, so minuscule that I knew it was a barnacle, but other than that, the white dot actually just leads you into what is there, just a little tiny plate. Now, when he published the paper, he remarked that this was completely new to science, and the fact that it goes way back in the Jurassic, okay, so that's quite good. Also, that no one since Darwin has found barnacles has only found, I think, 1 new species since then. So that's pretty good for us, for the Kimmeridge clay. So this white dot here actually shows this. This is in the volume as well, in his paper. And this is the world's oldest coloured barnacle plate. You can see that banding in there. The colour still, it might not be the original colour, but you can see it's got colour banding in it. So that's the world's oldest coloured barnacle by 36 million years as well. So since then, it's quite interesting. So what we worked on is okay, so these barnacles are all scattered about over the bedding plane. Where and what do they come from? And here's another one that shows, and he got quite excited by this, thousands of these disarticulated plates of these barnacles. Because when they're complete, they're like this, with a pedicle, okay, and these other plates up at the top, which throw out the little arms and cirrhoids fill with the water for the food they're after. But there's just thousands of disarticulated plates of the same sort of species of barnacle. And so we surmise really that, yeah, they must have been attached to things floating in the water column, like most goose barnacles. You know, you'd find them attached to sort of bottles and weed and wood and goodness knows what. And they float across the ocean, and perhaps sometimes the wood would get waterlogged and sink to the sea floor. Now, since he did the paper, I discovered a huge great log. It was 2.8 metres long of carbonised wood. I never took much notice of it until I looked on the side of the wood, and I could see there was like a film of like pyrite, and I thought, I don't know, strange. So I actually beat up a little lump of that, and I'll get these out just to show you because it's quite interesting. And I bought these back as sort of random little slabs. Okay. And if you look closely on that, there's thousands again of barnacles, but they're complete. These are not like those on the slab there, they're all falling apart. These are actually complete. So I suddenly realised that attached to this wood were thousands of these barnacles. There, attached to the lump, this part of it, are thousands of barnacles. Now with them, it's quite interesting because I've prepped these, excuse me, from the underside. Now with these barnacles are actually oysters. Okay. Now they're interesting in the sense that basically they must have attached themselves to the wood in the floating through the water column, because if you prep them from the underside, this wood has gone down in the mud, and oysters don't colonise the underside of a substrate in that muddy environment. So we know they must have been attached to the wood floating through the water column. And you can see here, this is part of the same thing. You can see there's a sort of stepped down. Underneath here would have been the wood, because we prepped from the underside. And you can see rows and rows and rows of barnacles, and there's myriads of them across here. And you look under a microscope, the preservation is exquisite. There's 2 distinct species of barnacle on this block as well. Now, interestingly, I went to Germany the other day, and we've proved beyond doubt that also floating through the water column would be ammonites. Probably maybe live ammonites or dead ammonites. There's still some discrepancy whether these things were alive or dead, but what we found is when I brought, again, Andy down to study some other horizons for barnacles, there was a much larger ammonite, which he's got the rest of, and you can see all around the periphery of thousands of barnacle plates. So the barnacles were probably attached to the ammonite. Now, when I went to Germany the other day, I bought one specimen back of an ammonite, and you can see here, there's the ammonite, all around the periphery, different species of barnacle, but you can see they're there attached to that there, and you can see there's barnacle plates attached to them on the middle of the sort of shell. Now, there's a few detached ones. So you can surmise that they're either attaching themselves to dead ammonites floating through a water column, or live ammonites when they're alive and attaching themselves there. So they're quite an interesting sort of species to study. There's so much that they know about these barnacles, and yet we're still sort of discovering information on these things. So not all the 2.8 metre log was covered in barnacles, but a lot of it was, and we've collected the vast majority of what there is there. So the importance is in the sense that really we've collected Darwin's missing link, and there's still more information to be gained from this material. That's it. All right.